Hey, everybody. I'm Dan Turbyville, and this is Powerhouse Fence Show. Thanks for stopping by today. Today, I have a guest here in the studio with me that I will introduce to you in a minute. I have Amanda with me, who is the Director of Marketing and Communication for Make-A-Wish Mid-South. And so, if you hadn't figured it out, we're going to talk about Make-A-Wish a little bit. So, we'll get into that. But first, we have to talk about our sponsors. Memphis Fence Company, MFC Manufacturing, and Simpalo. And we have some partners that are also listed up here above my head, if you can see me. They are the Thornton Fence Consulting Group. They do on-site consultations and have various events throughout the year. I always like going to at least the one at the end of the year, like the Fence Business Conference. It's a cool event, so check it out. We have Fence News. I like them. They put out the big magazine publication that has Pete and Jake in it and stuff. So if you want to keep up with all the current events and who's who and whatnot, you can check that out. And then EZG Manufacturing, they make the big orange equipment, the Fence Hog, and the I don't know what their concrete thing's called, the Mud Hog, maybe. I'm not sure, but anyway, the big orange stuff. You've seen it if you've been to a trade show or anything. So yeah, thanks for stopping by. So we're going to talk about Make-A-Wish. Like I said, we'll go through, talk about the history of the organization, what they do, how they do it, and how we can help support the mission of Make-A-Wish. So we are actually live. I have the phone calls turned off for today, but we are live. So feel free to stop by and leave a comment. And as always, thank you all for listening. That's what we do it for, to try to bring some value to our listeners. And we're here for you. So if you want to hear any certain topics or want us to try to get any guests or anything like that on the show, as always, you can reach out and let us know, and we'll do our best to make it happen. So with no further ado, let's get into it. And we will introduce Amanda.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for coming by. So we started talking about this a few weeks ago, and I was like, yeah, you want to be on the show? Like, I can send you the link. And she's like, oh, no, I'll come by there. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. It's been a while since somebody sat here with me, so that's neat.
Live is more fun.
It is. It is for sure. So thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to come hang out with us and do our little thing here. So I didn't realize it at the time, but it turns out that you're a real professional in the media world. And so I went, Olaria mentioned earlier needing a picture to make the thumbnail. And so I go to LinkedIn and I'm like, oh, I'll just find a picture on here. And then I saw your resume and I was like, oh my goodness. So I saw you've been a reporter. You've been an anchor. You've been a producer. You've been all of these different things, an editor.
Those titles are probably a little generous, but
right.
Sure.
And I mean, like at real news places.
I did. I had a whole news life before I started Make-A-Wish, and I love news. I'm really passionate about news and storytelling. Went to school at University of Missouri, Mizzou's journalism school.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, the #1 in the country. So
nice.
That's a good school for journalism.
It was an awesome place to be. So
yeah.
And then worked in some local news markets around the country.
Yeah.
And briefly in London.
Really?
Yes.
That's cool.
Covering the royal wedding, of course.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. 2011.
Wow, that's awesome.
Super fun.
So you worked, where all did you work in the country? I know you worked here, right? At one
WMC here in Memphis. That's correct.
Yeah.
I started as a writer, kind of the bottom of the totem pole, associate producer, Entertainment Tonight in LA. And I was just briefly dispatched overseas to London to prep for all of the royal wedding coverage with Katie Couric before the rest of the team got over there with CBS News. It's a syndicated show. So decided to get back into local news after that. So worked at KOCO in Oklahoma City.
Right.
And then WMC here in Memphis.
Nice. So that's crazy. That had to be a lot of, you had to have some interesting experiences doing that, right?
All kinds of, the more tornado hit when I lived in Oklahoma City, which is remarkable. I mean, it's such a crazy weather market, and really, really intense journalism happens in Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
And then in Memphis, it was so awesome. I mean, I love WMC. It's a great station to be at, great place to work. But I was also grateful to move out of the local news scene once again. I thought I wanted to spend my entire career in in LA and in entertainment
Mm.
journalism, and but overall, just really like telling stories and writing, which is kind of what led me to Make a Wish.
So were you like one of the paparazzi with the camera chasing people around?
That was not me. And Entertainment Tonight will be very clear to say they are not the paparazzi either.
Oh yeah, okay. I don't really watch any of that stuff, so I'm not super familiar with
Sure.
it. But
I mean, I will say I'm pretty out of the loop these days too. So
yeah. Yeah, well, so what happened, I was reading through all of this and I was like, "Oh no, what have I done?" And so I like started getting intimidated. I was like, "Man, she's going to come and sit in here and like I'm going to mess this up." And then I was like, "Oh, wait a minute. It's just a little
that's
podcast,
right.
right?" So,
It's just we're just having fun. Sure.
right. So we I didn't tell you, but I know I remember, Ilaria, I looked a few weeks ago and like within 14 days we had people download the podcast in like 7 or 8 countries. So like we
Wow.
might be going worldwide.
It's an impressive reach.
Yeah. Good job.
My grandma. I'm Italian, so usually tell my grandma to listen to the podcast
Brilliant.
to learn English.
There you go. To learn English. That's awesome.
So every once in a while you'll see some pop up in all these other countries and it's
Very
like, oh,
cool.
that's interesting.
That's
Like
great.
Belgium. We have a very loyal follower from Belgium.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the one. So you're now the director of marketing and communication for Make-A-Wish. So
That's right.
what is that?
What is that? Well, it's a role that I get to work with kids
Yeah.
who are battling critical illnesses.
Mhm.
We grant them wishes,
Mhm.
tell their stories. I manage a lot of our media relationships, kind of oversee some of our digital platforms and website and social media and all those types of things.
Right.
Occasionally get to have a lot of fun doing photo shoots and
Yeah.
things like that. Greater, broader storytelling. And then I also work on our events, which we also have across the region as well. So all kinds of events for people to get involved, give back, learn more about Make-A-Wish, and all those things.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. So I had this listed later on, but I can't wait. I can't wait anymore. So when I was in high school, we granted a wish and we did a bunch of fundraisers and all this stuff and did a bunch of crazy things. I remember, I think one kid had to like kiss a goat or something if we
gosh, fun.
raised $200. Like, it was all this kind of stuff. And I remember we went through all the stuff and we had a wish celebration
Yeah.
type thing, right? So the family came to the school and we went in the auditorium and we all got to meet the family and hang out with them and hear what
Yeah.
they were doing and all of this. And it was really amazing. And that's the reason why I came back to Make-A-Wish like 20-ish
Oh my
years
gosh, that's
later,
amazing.
because I remembered that experience from when I was in high school. So it really is a cool thing to be a part of. And I'm sure getting to see it all the time, it's amazing. So
It's amazing that it had that impact on you, and we
Yeah.
hope that it does.
Mhm.
But it's awesome to have it, be memorable to the point where years or decades later, you're still thinking of that experience.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. So it was, there wasn't like a short list of people that we wanted to reach out to and try to, talk to about supporting them or anything. It was like, oh, I want to support someone, I'm going to call Make-A-Wish. Right. And so
That's cool.
yeah. Yeah. So that is how the experience affected me way back when. So, but, all right. So you want to, can we talk a little bit about Make-A-Wish and like
Would
kinda
love
dive
to.
into
Yes.
that? Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So what is Make-A-Wish, right? A lot of people hear the name, but I don't know how many people actually know what Make-A-Wish does.
Sure. So, I mean, our mission, we say we grant wishes to children with critical illnesses.
Mhm.
Um, we really believe that wishes are life-changing. We believe that wishes are a whole creation process that they can experience while they're kind of battling this critical illness that they're
Right.
walking through. So, who do we grant wishes for? Any child with a critical illness who qualifies for a wish, we will grant their wish. And we always say we've never turned a child away from a wish
Mm.
because of fundraising or shortage of funds or anything like that. We've always said yes when there's a wish
Right.
waiting. So to be eligible for a wish, you have to
Mm.
be between the ages of 2.5 and 18 years old.
Okay.
We say at the time of referral. And so your doctor or medical professional is actually the one who kind of classifies your condition as qualifying for a wish or not. But very, very, very broad. Of course, a lot of children battling cancer are granted wishes.
Right.
Tons of other respiratory disorders and genetic disorders and blood disorders and all kinds of transplants and things like that also qualify for wishes. So really broad who we grant wishes for.
Right.
There are no other qualifications as far as, religious or income or anything like
Mhm.
that. No other qualifications for who
Wow.
would be granted a wish.
Yeah, that's cool. So, anyone who doesn't know, we are in Memphis, Tennessee, and St. Jude is here. And so I'm sure there's a lot of children from St. Jude that are granted wishes, right? In fact, when I was in high school, the kid then was a St. Jude patient. And so I'm sure that y'all get to see a bunch of those come through,
Yeah.
right?
That's exactly right. And we also have the honor of granting a lot of international wishes through St. Jude as well. So
Oh, wow.
kids, you guys were mentioning different countries with
Mhm.
listeners, kids from all over the world who are here for Saint treatment at St. Jude. It's actually Make-A-Wish Mid-South
Mhm.
who will grant a lot of those wishes for international kids as well.
Oh, wow. So they travel here to St. Jude,
Yeah.
right? And so while they're living at St. Jude
Right.
is when all that connection happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. St. Jude has like various houses
Right.
that families go and live in while the child's being treated there, right? And so I know that every once in a while you'll see like some renovation. We see like renovations and new
Yeah.
things being built and stuff. But man, there's construction happening there like all the time.
It never ends.
Yeah.
St. Jude has a lot of money.
Yeah.
And a lot of people get Make-A-Wish confused with St. Jude.
Hmm.
They are an amazing partner of ours. We're so grateful to, work with them and grant wishes, like you said, for a lot of St. Jude patients.
Right.
But we're totally separate nonprofits and totally separate entities,
Right.
even though we do work together often.
Right. Yeah. Well, it makes sense, especially
Yeah.
like, the Mid-South one.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what type of wishes do you grant? Like what if the kid qualifies between 2.5 and 18, they
Yeah.
qualify, they're recommended by their medical provider and all of that. So what can they do? Like, do they have a list of options that they get to choose from
I
or
know the sky is the limit,
yeah.
or a child's creativity really is the
Mm,
limit. It's really amazing. We generally say a lot of wishes fall into 5 categories: to have, to go,
mm,
to be, to meet, or to give. But there is a lot of creativity within those, of course. So we have kids who want to play in snow for the first time, or want to experience swimming with dolphins, or
mm,
want to have all kinds of she sheds, that want to go abroad, that want to drive airplanes, that want to be firefighters, that want to model in New York. There's all kinds of wishes. It's amazing, and it's really fun to see, wishes kind of I don't mean to say the term like come across your desk, but
right.
you get to see and read about and hear about all these wish experiences, and some of them are just so remarkably creative and unique. It's very, very cool to see.
Right. So do you have any stories of any specific wishes that you remember that kind of stand out to you?
Yeah, I remember a lot of wishes. I mean, one of we were able to grant a wish for a handful of kids who were in Memphis from Ukraine. It was right after the war in their country had started. Their families were not able to be with them. It was just one parent with them, also treated for the most part, I think, at St. Jude here in Memphis. And to be able to bring a child that amount of hope and joy in the hardship that they had experienced and their families were currently experiencing, it was really, really remarkable and a really moving experience. And we find that often with a lot of, I just really believe that a wish transcends cultural barriers or language barriers. I myself have had the honor of being a volunteer on a number of Spanish speaking wishes,
Right.
and I speak so little, such terrible Spanish, but to connect with a family, even when you don't speak the same language, or you have really different cultural backgrounds, is really amazing. So we have another wish kiddo. Her name is Abigail, and she wished recently to go to Rome and have cooking classes.
Oh, wow.
She was battling cancer, had her leg amputated, and she actually used the phrase that her wish was joy amidst chaos.
Mm,
And I think she's a little bit older. She's 18 now. And so I think especially when you have kids who are very aware, when you have a 3-year-old being treated for a
right.
critical illness or things like that, it certainly is a different ballgame than when you have a high schooler,
Right.
a teenager, that is very aware of their condition and their circumstances. And it is really powerful to hear her perspective on that wish and what it did for her in that stage of life as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you get to, I assume on occasion, you get to talk to the kids later.
Yeah,
right? Like
absolutely.
years later.
That's
And
right.
that's cool.
It is really cool. When it's years later, that's super neat. Oftentimes it's, shortly after the wish or something like that, but
Mm,
it's really special to hear their stories.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So one of the things for me, and I guess kind of like, I don't know, my interpretation or like what I think is really awesome about Make-A-Wish is, so I imagine I have two kids. I have a 7-year-old son, a 3-year-old daughter, and
Okay.
I imagine us and one of them being diagnosed with one of these conditions, right? And I just think about how much how that would affect our family and like the mindset that it would put us in, right? And like we all try to be positive and stuff like that. And of course, we as parents would have to try to maintain some positivity. But I mean, just our family being able to experience a trip or, something like that and just have that incredible positive moment in time while we're battling all this other stuff, I think would be really special. And I imagine it is for a lot of them.
Yeah,
So
it
that
is.
that's the cool thing, man. I figured out having kids really changes the perspective.
I know.
And so like, even watching movies, right?
Yeah.
It'll be like little stuff like that. You see a commercial on TV, you see a movie or something like that. And I think back before I had kids and I'm like, oh man, this movie, like, yeah, it was okay. And then I watch
Uh-huh.
it having kids and you kind of like can put yourself in that position a little
Sure.
bit. So it definitely makes things affect me different. And I think a little differently about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, there's a phrase that we use called the wish journey,
Mm,
and it really speaks to, the whole journey of a wish, and part of the wish is dreaming about what you want to be, what you want to have, where you want to go, what do you want your wish to be? And we hear for so many families share that is what gets them through a lot of hard days, through treatment and hospital visits and doctor visits and pokes and prods.
yeah.
That truly sitting there and thinking like, "Oh my gosh, but remember, and what if it's blue? And what if it's this big? And what if we can do that? And what if,"
Mhm.
just the wonder of childhood
Yeah.
is oftentimes in part restored through the experience of a wish, which is
Yeah.
pretty remarkable.
That's awesome. It's pretty cool to me, right? I like it.
Yes.
And so good job everyone at Make-A-Wish. I appreciate what they all do, what you all do.
Yeah.
So is Make-A-Wish nationwide? Like I know you said you granted international wishes, right? When kids are traveling here, which I think the story about the kids from Ukraine is really cool, right? And it's crazy to think of like the family being separated that way
I
and only
know.
one parent being able to be here and
Yeah.
all. But so is Make-A-Wish all across the United States?
So Make-A-Wish is actually worldwide. It's an international organization now. So the way it works, we have Make-A-Wish America,
Mm,
and Make-A-Wish America, it's kind of like, it's called a federated model with nonprofits, but it's kind of like a franchise that, Make-A-Wish America, all these different chapters pay dues to be part of Make-A-Wish, to, use the brand and things
mm,
like that. And Make-A-Wish America does provide some support to other Make-A-Wish entities, but across the US, the entire US is covered with, we call them Make-A-Wish chapters.
mm.
So Make-A-Wish Mid-South here in Memphis, we cover West Tennessee, North Mississippi, and the entire state of Arkansas.
Okay.
There is Make-A-Wish Nebraska, there's Make-A-Wish, 3 different Make-A-Wish chapters in California, there's Make-A-Wish Hawaii, there's
Right.
kind of Make-A-Wish chapters all over, and there are some also internationally. So
Mm,
there are a number of also international entities that cover, Make-A-Wish experiences within their own countries.
right. And so are kids able to be recommended in other countries as well to
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
international? What's
Absolutely.
okay. So I think there's what, 58 chapters here in the US, is that right?
I believe it does. It changes kind of year to year, but I think that sounds about right.
Somewhere in that neighborhood, give
Yes.
or take. Yeah, so man, that's a lot of stuff going on.
Yes. Yeah.
And if I remember right, so Gretchen was here.
Right.
And
My
so
colleague, she's wonderful.
right. And so she's the one that we've kind of been coordinating with
Yeah.
our own fundraiser and our donation and things like that. And so she came here and I think she said that there was something like 300 wishes just in the local chapter of Make-A-Wish. And so imagine how many
Waiting
there
to be
are.
granted. Is that what you're
Right.
saying? Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so imagine how many there are across the country and around the world. That's
Absolutely.
insane.
Yes.
So, man. Um so the kids, I mean, I think one of the things that she touched on a few times was if the kids have to be terminally ill, which we already kind of talked about that a little bit,
Right.
and they indeed do not.
Right.
And
That is
so,
one of the biggest misconceptions of our
right,
organization for
right.
sure.
And so she came here and she gave us a presentation, right? And so we kind of
Yeah.
got like our sales and management team together, and we all listened to the presentation, and she had a slideshow and all that stuff. And I know she kind of touched on that a few times. And then she gave us a quiz at the end, and it was like,
Good job, Gretchen.
do they have to be terminally ill? And so that was cool. And so do all doctors participate in this recommendation program, or is there only some, or like how does that?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I'm not a doctor, and I don't work in a hospital, but from what I understand of it, we do Make-A-Wish, we do a lot of medical outreach. And so it's we want to be sure that as many doctors, nurse practitioners, social workers, as many people in clinics and hospitals know about Make-A-Wish as
Mhm.
possible. And so it is a part of my job, with marketing and communications, to be sure that the word is out there about the possibility and the opportunity for kids to be referred to Make-A-Wish. We do find oftentimes that, like, generally speaking, a lot of hospitals, it will be passed down from doctor to doctor, or as doctors are working with nurses, they'll kind of learn more about Make-A-Wish when whoever, the social worker brings it up or things
Right.
like that. So I think that there's like a lot of connective fabric there, but it is our hope, yes, that every parent and every medical professional can know about Make-A-Wish and know that referral is possible.
S-
I also didn't touch on this, but parents refer for wishes as well. So a parent or a medical professional, or often, occasionally, I should say rarely, the child themselves. If a 15-year-old is like, "Hey, make a wish. I have a condition I think would qualify,"
Right.
that 15-year-old, of course, can refer themselves for a wish.
Okay. And so the parents can just go on the website
Right.
probably
That's
and
exactly right.
yes, kind of start the process there.
Yep.
So that's an interesting thing that I hadn't really thought about, is that there has to be like a whole marketing effort to make sure that the medical professionals
Sure.
know how they can, recommend children and
Right.
things like that. Yeah, that's another. It's weird how you get into these things and there's all these different angles and stuff that
So
you
many
never even
layers.
think
That's
about.
right.
So, do you know, if I remember right, I think it was somewhere around like maybe 250 wishes or something like that get granted here at the local chapter. Do you have any idea how many are granted like nationwide or?
That's a good question. Um, Yearly, man, I really don't want to misspeak, but it is certainly thousands of wishes
Hmm,
nationwide.
right.
We are Make-A-Wish Mid-South. The number of wishes that we grant, yep, it's generally close to 300 a year,
Right.
about that. And we are the size of Make-A-Wish organization that we are. We're toward the top tier, so there's really small chapters
Hmm.
that might grant 30 wishes a year, and then there's
Right.
others that will grant 900 wishes a year. So
Right.
it really is all over the board with, and then that obviously generally is geographically driven, perhaps around population and
Oh,
things like that.
well, and we talked about St. Jude, right? So
Right.
like, you have a large collection of
Yes.
children,
Quite. Oh, yeah. Pipeline for that.
right?
Absolutely.
And so you mentioned Nebraska,
Collection
like,
of children. It's a good
right,
phrase.
right. So you mentioned Nebraska. You get out in, kind
Sure.
of rural Nebraska, and there's probably not as many children
Right.
there. There's not as big of a collection of children.
Not quite the collection you see in Memphis.
Right.
That's right.
So, we talked about how many wishes are going to be granted. And one of the things that kind of, again, the different angles and the different perspectives and stuff like that. And one of the things that I thought about while I was preparing for this was really think about the logistics that are involved with trying to grant a wish and trying to
Yeah.
orchestrate all of that happens 300 times a year just here.
Yeah.
And I mean, we were fortunate enough, we were able to send a guy to Italy. So him and his wife, and we sent him on a trip to Italy. And I know Alyssa, my wife, she works here as well. And she spent a good bit of time like planning for that and preparing for it and, kind of setting up tours for them and doing
Yeah. Oh my
all of
gosh.
that.
Yes.
And she even she had a travel agency involved and other things like that to try to kind of like handle all of that. And I remember it was, you know, I mean, it wasn't like she worked on it 40 hours a week, but I mean, she put effort into just doing that.
Mhm.
And so that's probably, I would imagine, like a fairly simple
Mhm.
wish to, send a family on a trip, right? Because I mean, there's certainly things that are far more complex than doing that.
Sure.
And like you mentioned, modeling in New York, right?
Yeah,
So now
right.
you have the travel and you have to find a modeling agency and
Sure.
like get
Yes.
the
Yes.
child clothed and
Right.
teach them how to do it. And like, the that side of things is really crazy to me. So there definitely has to be like an impressive team of people involved in making all
They
of
are
that
so
happen.
impressive. Yeah, they're called wish coordinators.
Mm,
And our wish coordinators, we do have a handful of wish coordinators at Make-A-Wish Mid-South, and they are remarkable. They're like travel agent extraordinaire.
mm.
You mentioned, yeah, wishes that are more common when a child who wants to go to Hawaii to climb volcanoes, or a child who wants to go to Disney, one of the Disney parks or something like that. Those wishes generally we're pretty familiar with how to grant those,
Right.
and what that looks like, and have more of a format for it. There's a lot of wishes that are, I mean, we had a child who wanted to go to Antarctica, and it's like, well,
Oh, wow.
what is even in Antarctica, you might ask? I don't know. I mean, where do we even begin?
Right.
It's all kinds of, it's one thing to line up, like you said, just a trip to Italy or something, and it's
Mm.
another thing to specifically want cooking classes, or to bike here, or to experience more specific things in those destinations. So they are a very, very, very talented group of people. We have done sand volleyball courts. We have done regulation tennis courts. We had a child who wanted to gift tennis courts to his community,
Oh,
and
wow. That's cool.
it was amazing. It was in near Jonesboro, Arkansas, just north of here, and, we had the USTA involved, the
Mm.
Tennis Association, and they came out for, the wish celebration, and it was amazing, but it was very meticulous, to be sure that it was regulation, and that we used the right concrete, and all these very intricate details that you often do not consider.
Yeah. Yeah, so that is complicated,
It's
right?
complicated,
That's a
yes,
lot of
yes.
moving parts. That's a construction project.
Yeah, huge, yeah, absolutely
You
it
did
is.
a whole construction
Yes,
project.
yeah,
So, I mean, and then, you can't really just be good at one of them,
sure.
right? Because I mean, I assume you have a limited team like at Make-A-Wish Mid-South, right? There's not a person who's an expert at everything that a child could dream of. And so like you really have to be a little bit experienced in a lot of
Yeah,
things. Kind of,
absolutely.
what do they say? A jack of all trades,
That
kind of?
jack of all trades. That's where the Make-A-Wish network is really able to be leveraged as well. When we have a child who wants to go, I don't know, bear sighting in Montana or something.
Mhm.
The people in Montana who work for Make-A-Wish are a great resource for us
Right.
to kind of help coordinate that wish. So the Make-A-Wish network also is very robust and very helpful. We actually recently had the chance to host a kiddo from New Jersey who wanted to go mining for diamonds in Arkansas. And so it's kind of fun, the cooperation between, different Make-A-Wish chapters and organizations across the country,
Right.
when you have those really creative wishes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like I said, that was just kind of one of the things that hit me. And I was like, man, there's a
Yes,
lot of stuff going on.
there is.
So, how many people are like full time staffed at Make a Wish Mid South?
Yeah, I would say about 22 people or so are full-time on staff with us.
Wow. 22 people.
I know. Small but mighty.
Yeah, right. Well, it's bigger than I thought, actually.
Oh, okay.
I mean, when you hear 300 wishes a year, I'm like, okay, now that makes more sense, right? It takes an army to
Sure.
get that done. But I don't, just having not really known much about Make a Wish, like I would have thought it was just a handful. So 22 to me is pretty decent size.
There you go.
Yeah.
And, I mean, our team, like, similar to your team, we also fundraise. So
Mhm.
all of our employees, even at 22 employees a year, we all give toward granting a wish,
Right.
and we're able to grant a wish as a staff,
Oh, wow.
often with just like the pooling of the money that each of our staff members gives.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
pretty
That's
cool.
awesome.
I always just say that because people think like, man, to get to a wish, like that takes a staff of 100 people to get there if everyone's giving toward it, and it doesn't.
Mm.
It's even staffs like 22 people can do it as well.
Right. Yeah. So you're not only fundraising and coordinating other wishes, but y'all are also granting your own wish. Right.
Yes, occasionally. That's like once a year. It's not,
Right. Right.
but yes.
Yeah. So how did Make a Wish start? Like, do you have the history of Make a Wish?
I do have the history of Make-A-Wish. We started in Arizona.
Okay.
There's a little boy, his name was Chris Gracious, and he wanted to be a police officer. His mom was taking night classes, and a good friend of hers, her husband was a police officer, and she just thought, you know what, Chris, he's really sick. He's not doing very well. Do you think that like your husband could just like give him a ride in his police cruiser or something like that? You know, it just
Mm.
would mean a lot to him. So, um, this police officer got with his friends for the it's like the Arkansas State. No, I'm sorry, not Arkansas, Arizona State Highway Police or Arkansas. I'm sorry, Arizona Troopers maybe. But they got together and they were like, "Hey, we can do a lot more than just give him a ride in a police car.
Mm.
What if we like, bring out the chopper, let him see it, kind of all these things." So turns out the day of Chris's wish, he got in his police uniform and he had his gun. He was sworn in as an officer,
Oh, wow.
and he had this huge experience. There is some footage from his wish, and it's a video that I can send you, Dan, but you're gonna need some tissues because it is very, 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 very moving and very incredible to hear. You talk about the size of teams and how big of a group it takes to make a difference. But this was, 3 or 4 people who just said, "Hey, here's a child and here's a need, and can we get this done?"
Right.
And they did, and it was amazing. It was amazing to hear them talk about the impact it had on Chris and each of them, and it started this whole movement of wishes. There's this group that started Make-A-Wish. They said at the end of Chris's wish, we kind of looked at each other and we said, "Well, there are more kids. There are more kids just like him who
Mhm.
need these experiences and this hope and this joy and this, exhilaration to get through what he's facing."
So, what year was that?
That was, I want to say 1980.
And yeah, okay. So it's been around for a while.
It's been around for a while.
So,
Make-A-Wish Mid-South here, we're actually getting ready to celebrate our 40th anniversary.
yeah. Wow.
It's exciting.
So there's still video from
Yeah.
from 1980. It's floating around out here somewhere
Right.
of the original Wish.
It's not floating too far. You can check it out on our YouTube channel, actually.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. I'll have to check it out, and if you want to send it to me, that'd
I
be
sure
awesome.
will.
Yeah. So, man, so he got to check out a helicopter. He got his own unit. That's cool, right? And that's the kind of
Yeah.
stuff that's really cool. And so, also, what I now think about is like, well, once the police department knew, like they were all kind of into it,
Oh my
right?
gosh,
And they were like,
yes,
oh no,
yes.
let's do this, let's do that. So I'm sure that helps with the coordinating and the logistical side of it too, because I mean everybody's excited to do stuff like that.
Yes, and for the most part, that is true. I hope that everyone is excited to do stuff like
Right,
that.
right.
But I mean, it certainly is. It is quite inspiring and really encouraging, just to see how wishes can really catch fire. And
Mhm.
when people get excited about something, and well, what if we do this, and we know this person who does that, and then what if we also bring this in? There's all kinds of imagination. You kind of see the mirror of adults,
Mm,
the mirror of their imagination. When
right,
they're dreaming up things for this child, which is really cool.
right. And so that was Wish 1.
Yes.
And then from there they just said, let's do it again.
That's right.
And then just kept
And
doing
again
it,
and
and it
again, that's
grew,
right,
and
yeah.
they got funded.
Right.
I guess they started doing fundraisers and
Right,
things like
fundraisers,
that. And
yes.
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah, a common misconception of Make-A-Wish actually is that we are completely funded by donations.
Mhm.
We don't, a very small amount, about 1 or 2% of our budget usually comes from grants.
Okay.
And we have no government funding. And so the incredible, 97% of our budget is individual giving, corporate giving, event fundraising, things like that fund those 300 wishes each year.
So the grants, where are they from? You said it's not government?
Yeah, I mean, like, sometimes companies, I mean, like Walmart, for example, in Northwest Arkansas, has a lot of grants for nonprofits. Things like so
Okay.
larger corporations oftentimes will have grants that you can apply for. Some for-profit entities kind of have a nonprofit arm that they'll give away,
Mm,
grants for certain things.
right. Yeah, I got you. So it's a corporate grant kind of
Yes, for sure.
deal.
Yes,
Yeah,
more so.
yeah. Okay, so fundraisers have to happen all the year, all
Mhm,
the time,
mhm.
right? And so I know I can we disclose how much the average
Sure,
cost of a
yeah,
wish is?
yeah.
Okay. So $10,000 is like your average
Right,
cost of a wish
right,
times 300
right.
just here.
Yeah,
And then there's 55, 60 chapters
yeah.
that are all trying to raise that money. Like that's a crazy thing
Yes,
to be able to raise that much
yeah,
money too.
right.
And that's wild. without any kind of like government funding, with
know.
nothing else,
Yeah.
all funded through individuals and companies.
Right. And then each year it kind of starts over again at 0.
Right.
So, it's we do have recurring gifts, which are amazing, and we do have companies and corporations that kind of come back year after year,
Right.
Which is amazing. But when you're it is a lot of work for our team to reconcile how many wishes, which you do not know exactly. When you're kind of budgeting as a business owner, as a company at the top of the year, budgeting for what wishes you're going to have, how much they'll cost, how many you'll have, and then when how you're going to get all the money for them.
Right.
It's very complex.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. So what are like some of the big fundraisers? Are there events and like what are the galas?
Galas,
Gala?
absolutely.
I
Yes.
never
Yeah.
really know how to say that
No, it's
word, so
okay.
I'm not fancy enough to even have that in
Same.
my vocabulary.
I've been to very few galas. I've been to a lot of Make-A-Wish ones,
Yeah.
but yeah, here in the Memphis market, a couple major events. So we have an event called Wine for Wishes that happens every year in February, and that's actually hosted by our associate board. Our associate board, we say, is generally speaking a group of young professionals, maybe people 25 to 40 years old,
Mm.
and they host Wine for Wishes downtown here at the Cadre. So you can buy tickets. There's a great silent auction there. There's usually at all our events, there's opportunities for like additional ways to give. So, you could have a Wine for Wishes specifically has something called a diamond pull, which means that you like buy a glass of champagne for $25. And then at the end of the night, they announce which glass, has a diamond in it, which is kind of fun. So
Yeah.
you could have a diamond for $25, which
So
is a
it's
pretty good deal.
a raffle with champagne.
That's right.
Yeah.
There you go. Something like that.
Yeah.
That's a good metaphor. We also have dishes for wishes. So that actually just recently happened here, also in Memphis. Dishes for Wishes is similar. It's a really great like kind of food tasting event. Awesome restaurants from all over Memphis come and bring some of their top dishes, and you kind of get to sample all these great food dishes. There's an open bar. There's a live auction there.
Mm.
And then we have a golf tournament in June. But a lot of also outside organizations host what we call external events.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe other organizations have golf tournaments that fundraise for Make-A-Wish, or they will do, for years and years, we had like a crawfish boil event that,
Right.
you buy tickets for, and that kind of benefits Make-A-Wish. So
Right.
it's different than, your high school experience of your school raising
Right.
money, but groups, companies, friends, and any of those things who host events on behalf of Make-A-Wish, and then those events benefit Make-A-Wish, which is really neat as well.
Right. So like corporations are basically having their own events and helping to fund.
Sure.
And yeah.
In some cases.
Yeah. So I used to be pretty actively involved in one of the local contractors associations, not as much anymore.
Yeah.
And we hosted a gala a few
Very
years
cool.
in a row.
Yeah.
And it didn't benefit Make-A-Wish. The board chose a charity every year. And I think one year we did like 2 of them or something like that. But I mean, hosting that event was a lot.
Yes.
It was,
Yeah.
and I remember, man, I think we would spend like $40,000 or $50,000 like to have the event. And, by the time we paid for, all the food and drinks and the venue and the band and like everything else. So it was a lot of energy and effort that went into doing one of those too. So that's cool that there's companies out there that are doing that themselves.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're probably employ more people than we do here. It's probably big corporations and stuff.
In some cases, and in other cases, it's a group of friends who, wants to do their Memphis in May barbecue team to benefit Make-A-Wish.
Yeah.
It can be big, it can be small. I will say something that's kind of unique about Make-A-Wish Mid-South and our events is that we really lean very heavily on partners to make sure that our events actually are very low cost.
Mm.
So for Dishes for Wishes, for example, there are all these amazing restaurants who come out and give their dishes, and they just donate the food, and the service time and all of those things. So we really look for donated venues and donated rentals and all those things to keep the cost, because you're right, it can get so expensive so quickly.
I'm sure that y'all probably have a better chance of getting some venues and stuff donated than we did. So
we do. I mean, the network is strong, and it's genuinely really inspiring to see what people will do, but it's also really hard work because there's so many really wonderful, noble causes out there.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah. So that's all really cool. And I don't know. It's really like the thing that I just keep getting hung up on is making all of this work together,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like being able to do the fundraising and then network with all the medical providers and make sure that they're aware of that Make-A-Wish exists and how
Yeah.
to recommend
Yeah.
kids and who to recommend and all of that. And then the orchestrating the wishes to be granted. I mean, man, it's crazy. It really is it's a lot deeper than what I ever anticipated, like getting into this thing. And the
Sure.
further we go, like the more I kind of realize and learn about it and stuff like that. So yeah, that's cool. So there's a handful of events here. And where could someone, let's say somebody's listening in Nebraska right now and they want to see local events that are at their Make-A-Wish
Yeah.
chapter, can they go on the Make-A-Wish website and will that lead them to those events?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Make-A-Wish, if you just go to Google and search Make-A-Wish, our national office has all of the chapter sites listed on their website, but you also can just Google Make-A-Wish Nebraska, Make-A-Wish Memphis, and Make-A-Wish Mid-South will pop up, or your local chapter will.
Right.
And they should, yes, have all their events listed and ways to get involved. And, there's so many, even outside of events, you can become a volunteer. We always ask for, referring a child. You can donate airline miles if you have a lot of airline miles you want to donate to make a trip possible for a child. So there's a lot of ways to get involved and give back.
I was really confused about what you said at first, and then I was like, "Oh, airline miles." Okay. I don't know why I heard like live vials, and I was like, "What?" So,
I'm pretty congested. You'll have to excuse.
Oh no. I'm also just, I'm me and do my thing. So, yeah. So that you can donate airline miles. That's cool, and you can just go on the website and donate. I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
So. And you could do that to like Make-A-Wish, your local organizations and like Make-A-Wish of America, either one.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to lobby for your local organization here, Make-A-Wish Mid-South. But
Mm-hmm.
yes, of course, you can if yes, wherever you're listening from, you can give to your local organization, you can give to the national office, and they distribute those airline miles as well.
Yeah. So does Make-A-Wish of America, when they receive donations, they just basically like divvy it out to all the chapters minus their operating expenses and stuff, I'm sure.
Yeah, similar to that.
Yeah. Something along those lines.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. So that's cool. So how does most of the funding come from like these fundraiser events, or does it come just sporadically throughout the year? Like how does the funding come in? Is there like, kind of peaks or
Sure. Yeah, there certainly are. A lot of schools who fundraise, maybe they'll fundraise during homecoming or during spirit weeks or the end of the year, things like that. Of course, the end of the calendar year is a really popular time for people to give. Giving and being generous is really on your mind at the holidays, Thanksgiving, and through December and things. There is, Giving Tuesday is a big giving opportunity, I think, for us as well. And then also we just wrapped up World Wish Month, which is the month of April.
Mm-hmm.
And April is, a time where we celebrate wish makers and Make-A-Wish. And so hopefully during the month of April, you're really seeing a lot more about Make-A-Wish on platforms like Good Morning America and maybe even ads on your Facebook page and things like that. But April is what we call World Wish Month. And like I said, we're celebrating wish makers, and we say wish maker is anybody who takes action for wish kids. And so that's someone who volunteers for wish kids. That's someone who refers a child. That's someone who, donates toys for kids, that donates money, that, gets their neighborhood involved in a lemonade stand.
Right.
Really, it's anybody who takes action for wish kids.
So what was this Tuesday that you mentioned? Giving Tuesday? Yeah, what is that?
Giving Tuesday. Well, it's like Black Friday, right? It's the Friday after Thanksgiving.
Right.
And then the Tuesday after Thanksgiving is called Giving Tuesday.
Oh.
And so it's not very old. It started maybe, I don't know, less than 10 years ago, I want to say. And Giving Tuesday, I think, is just it's a campaign really where, to activate people to be generous after being very consumer minded on Black Friday.
Right. So is that just Make-A-Wish, or is that?
No. Yeah, no, it's like a nationwide.
It's like a nonprofit kind of thing.
Yeah, sure. Giving Tuesday is for nonprofits.
Okay, so it's just a day to be charitable.
Yes, that's right.
Okay, I've never heard of such.
Yeah.
So that's cool. Learn something. I learned a lot of things today. So.
Don't we all?
Yeah.
I mean, it's good to be alive and be learning.
Yeah. So Giving Tuesday, and yeah. Okay. Well, that's a new thing. So, um, so one of the other things that Gretchen talked about was the size of the wish, right? And so
Sure.
I think a lot of times we as people, we see, you know, periodically you see these like GoFundMe's, right? Where someone's house burnt down or some other tragic event happened in somebody's life. And I think what we do is we look and we're like, oh man, I've got $10, like, you know, but
Sure.
that's not going to do anything. And so I think we just keep on moving by and we don't think that these smaller wishes matter. And so, what do you think? What's your position on this?
Well, I certainly think that, it's this phrase, every dollar counts,
Mhm.
or every donation counts. I really do think that's true. And let me tell you a story about why I believe that. We have a big campaign in Jonesboro, Arkansas. It was featured on 60 Minutes a number of years ago, but it is a completely cash campaign. And it is the city and the region of Jonesboro, Arkansas, coming together to drop cash in buckets for people standing on the side of the road in all of these teeny tiny towns that you may have never heard of. You've
Mhm.
driven past them maybe, but and they raise hundreds of thousands of dollars in one day because of all those cumulative donations.
That's
And
crazy.
so I always think of that fundraiser this year, they raised over $500,000
Just by standing around with
one
buckets.
day in one day.
Holy cow.
And it's not pledges, it's not, "Hey, we'll give you 10 grand by the end of the year." It's not corporations, there are some businesses, that will cut checks and support that, but
Right.
it is, I mean, the amount of passion for these groups of people in their communities, this is Northeast Arkansas, they are small
Mhm.
communities, to stand out on the side of the road in for one day, sun up to sundown, collecting money. I mean, it is cash in buckets that is enormously funding wishes.
So, what is the population of Jonesboro? Let's look it
Yeah,
up
great
real quick.
question.
80,650 in 2023.
Sure.
And they raised over $500,000 by collecting
Yes.
dollars and quarters in buckets on
Yeah.
the
I
side.
mean, it's Jonesboro, but even smaller, it's Pocahontas and Wiener and,
Mm,
all these neighboring cities, or I
yeah.
shouldn't even say cities, probably
Towns.
towns.
Yeah.
It's totally towns.
Yeah. Yeah. That's crazy. So,
So all that to say, yes, $10 does make a difference when there's 10 other people giving $10 and 10 other people giving 20 and 100 other giving 5, and it really adds up.
right. Yeah, so like I said, that was one of the things that Gretchen, and I think there was even that's one of the things she talked about.
Mhm.
So I think there was also like Ilaria, didn't you post something that had like, you know, $10 does this or
Yeah.
$20 does that or
Yeah, it was a little
Mm.
infographic where like we tell like it's even $1, but like you know what $1 could do? It's like, oh, we can buy candies for like a road trip or like something like that. And I thought
Oh, sure.
it's a good perspective for like a lot of people.
Yeah, we have those for Make-A-Wish too. We say that there's all kinds of wishes, somebody who wants a horse. Well, $10 can contribute to, well, a horse is kind of a bad example because we all know horses are expensive, but,
right.
$10 can buy a dog's leash, and $100 can buy, the training bridle for the horse, and
Right.
$25 can buy beach towels for the family headed to the beach, and, those types of things. So there's certainly a lot of, we always like to send families, when you're a part of Make-A-Wish and you wish for a horse, you wish to go to the beach, we're not just sending you on an airplane to the beach.
Mhm.
We have this wish celebration where we get to give you all these supplies and things for your new room and for your new dog and for your trip. And so that's called the wish celebration. You actually said it correctly earlier. And we really want to be sure that, talk about the excitement of kids, it's to get to open presents and have a new
Oh
backpack
yeah.
for the trip and have a new towel and new sunglasses. And those types of things are just really exciting for kids. And so we really equip them well for their wishes, whatever they may be.
Yeah, that's awesome. Because I now think back again to the people from Ukraine, right?
Sure.
I mean, they didn't bring their whole house
I
full of
know.
stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And so they came here with like what they needed to
Mhm.
live and or what they had. And, you know, if they're going to go to the beach or go to Disney, I
Right.
think Disney is a pretty popular
Yeah,
destination.
sure.
Right. So if they're going to go to Disney or something, I mean, they don't have all of the stuff to go there. So yeah, that
Mhm.
makes sense too, that they need to be equipped for
Right.
whatever they're going to do. Antarctica, like I don't have anything I could wear in Antarctica, you know?
Right, right. And you go back to, we serve, families of all different backgrounds and all different populations. And so it's really a luxury to be able to go on a trip with your family.
Mm.
And it certainly is a luxury also to be able to get your kids some new road trip games or new this or that. And a lot of
Right.
families aren't able to do that. So when they do go on a trip, it's true that the entire family might not have swimsuits. They
Right.
might not have luggage, things like that.
Oh, yeah, and you think once again, I put myself in that position, right?
Yeah.
And I think, man, the financial burden of having a kid going through this stuff has got to
Yes.
be
Yes.
immense,
Sure.
right? And even with insurance and
Yeah.
whatnot, like it's still got to be crazy. And so, I mean, I'm sure that it puts you in a position where even if you could go on a trip today and could, buy games and all that stuff for the road trip, like in that situation, you might not be able to. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, all of that. Again, I just learned so much, right? And I like it. It's fun. Um, so if you haven't been listening and you haven't been paying attention, then maybe you don't know. But we at Memphis Fence, so we've committed to grant a wish ourselves, right? So we've committed $10,000 to grant one wish, and so the fundraiser that we're doing is above and beyond that. And so we're trying to see if the rest of the fence industry will contribute and maybe grant a second wish would be awesome. That's
That's
what our
awesome.
goal is
That's
set at.
awesome.
And so we've gotten some donations and we've made a little bit of progress, but there's a long way to go to get that fundraiser
Sure.
to 10,000. And so one of the things I wanted to ask you is like, do you have any tips for us, right? Because we've been putting it on social media. We've been talking about it here on the show and like we've been doing those kind of things. I think we have email signatures, like,
Yeah,
we have
great.
this stuff in there. I think don't we have a QR code up there on the counter, right? So
Yes.
anybody that walks in
Mhm.
our office can see it. And so like we're trying to get it all out there, but do you have any ideas or suggestions
Yeah.
of something else we could do?
Well, my tip is to stick Gretchen on them because she's really good at what she does. I'm just kidding. Um, we're always happy to talk about Make-A-Wish. I think that a couple things that I have found to be really compelling with fundraisers like that is sharing kids' stories.
Mm.
And so when you go to the Make-A-Wish Facebook page or Instagram or any of those things, to be able to share out, hey, look at this story, look at this wish and how it changed the life of this family, and the quotes from the parents and the pictures from the children and things like that can be very compelling, I think, to get other people involved. Our YouTube has a lot of really great videos. So even if you guys want to share out a few of those short videos to say, hey, this is why wishes matter. This is why we're doing what we do. Those types of things can be really impactful, I think. And then, Larry, what she was saying also with just what things cost and the average price of a wish and things like that of, hey, what happens when you give this amount? What can it do?
That's something I've definitely been trying to like push on
Yes.
about because I even myself before that I was like, oh, like I don't know, I don't have 1,000 to just like drop right now. But
Yeah.
like as Gretchen pointed out, it's like some of these people like and never been on a trip. So she was like,
Yeah.
some people went to the airport and they didn't have luggage.
Yeah.
So it's like it makes
That's
sense once
exactly
you're
right.
like kind of brought back to. So I was like, hey, like everything helps.
It does. It does.
Yeah, and so that again is kind of I think been for me as a consumer is or a potential donator, whatever that
Yeah.
word is, right? Has kind of been my mindset too. Is like, oh well, what can I do? Like, if I give them $100, what's that really doing? So yeah, no, I think it's really cool, and I think it's a thing to point out to people, and I think Ilaria's done a good job of sharing that on our social media and stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we'll just
You'll
start.
you'll get there. It'll catch fire, and you never know that. Even other people doing fundraisers, like you mentioned at your school, maybe you have a well, dress casual for work day, and you have to pay $5 to do so, and you have a pool for this or different contests and things like that. Also, I think can be motivating for people. So,
Yeah.
but what you're doing, I mean, you guys just highlighting Make-A-Wish and highlighting the stories of wishes
Mhm.
and highlighting, what Make-A-Wish is. It can have a really powerful ripple effect that you don't always
Right.
see immediately, but it can be pretty incredible in the long run.
Oh, we're not discouraged. We're still going. And I
Sure.
mean,
Yeah.
I think right now, I think when I looked yesterday or day before, I think it was like $450 has
Look at
been
you.
donated, on the fundraiser. But either way, like it's brand recognition, so to
Very
speak,
cool.
right? For Make-A-Wish. So is this the YouTube channel?
Yeah, if you want, you can also type in Make-A-Wish Mid-South.
Okay. So Mid-South has their own.
Yes.
Okay. So I was gonna put a link to it
Sure.
in the comments
That's it.
here.
Yeah.
All right.
And a lot of those stories and a lot of those videos there are our local wishes. You see the Grizzlies wish there, and um, it's really neat to see all kinds of wishes on that channel for sure.
Sorry.
No, you're totally fine.
I left as you were trying to talk about it. Yeah. So, wow, that's cool. So there's quite a few videos on here, huh?
There are quite a few. I mean, one, yeah, a kid I wish to be a zookeeper at the Memphis Zoo. It's really sweet.
Mm,
Some of these are national videos, but most of them are local.
yeah.
That right there, the Have a Heart interview. That's the fundraiser that I mentioned, raises a lot of money through cash. So
Mm,
they use the same software you were using now to record those.
right. Yeah. Yeah. I see a lot of it looks like, StreamYard, Zoom kind of
Yeah,
thing. So
right.
I guess this is when the kids find out that they are being granted a wish.
Yeah, a lot of the videos are that. A lot of videos are kind of, yeah, kind of recaps of their wish or wish experience. So some are when they find out that their wish is being granted, and others are kind of post wish. Kind of
Mhm.
you catch a family 6 months after their wish.
Right.
That Emmy's Playhouse,
Oh,
oh my
sorry.
gosh, is so adorable. Little pink bow on her head there.
Yeah.
She's like giving you a tour of her playhouse that she
Oh,
wished
that's
for.
cool. That's cool. Yeah. So I put a link to the local Make a Wish Mid South YouTube page. I put that. It shows a comment on Facebook and YouTube. So if you want to see it, then obviously you can just go to YouTube and search for Make a Wish Mid
Sure.
South too, and you'll see it. It pops up there. So it's not hard to find. But that's cool. So I think that's a good idea for us is maybe to find we can go through and watch a few of the videos and we might share,
Yes.
a couple of
I'll send you
videos.
some links.
Okay. All right.
Gladly.
Sounds good. What were you going to say, Ilaria?
I said, yeah, that's a good idea to like share videos.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's cool. So people can kind of see. So yeah. So we're out here. We're trying it.
You're doing it.
We're doing it. We're
Yeah.
talking about it
That's
and we're
great.
doing our best. So it's we do have a link in the description to our fundraiser and it goes straight to Make a Wish's site that's like has our logo on it. I don't really know how
Yeah,
to
sure.
describe that properly, but it's our site, our Make a Wish's site with our logo, and
Right.
so you can donate straight there, and it'll count towards the goal. And then also, I think people could like donate cash, and they can donate like a check and stuff like that, and then we can turn that in too. So
That's exactly right.
if anybody happens to be local and listens, then you can stop by and you can
Sure.
drop money off that way if you prefer. So whatever works. It's all. Do y'all take Bitcoin?
Currently that's a no.
Not yet.
Not yet.
It's a work in progress. Don't
Sure.
worry.
Yes. We're advancing toward that.
Yeah. So well, it's been fun. I appreciate you stopping by and
Such a pleasure.
hanging out with us. And at the end, I always do this awkward thing, and I'm like, "Do you have anything else you'd like to talk about?"
Well, that is a really great journalistic practice. To
Yeah.
say, is there anything else?
Yeah.
I don't think so. This has been very thorough, and
Yeah.
I'm very grateful for the chance to talk about Make-A-Wish and wishes and how we do what we do and how people can support us. So we're always really glad for the opportunity to share about wishes and about what we do.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I really appreciate you stopping by and hanging out with us. It's been cool, and hopefully we can keep going, and we'll see what we can do, and maybe we'll have to try to do it again next year
There you
and see if we
go.
can't kick off what April is make
Sure.
make
World
a wish
Wish Month.
World Wish Month.
World
Okay.
Wish Month.
So maybe we'll do it again next April and try to kick that off then.
There you go. Get some inertia with the April.
Yeah, for sure.
It's good.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for coming by, and thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time.